All right, I saved this tune to the very last because it's actually the most difficult one we have. There's lots of chord changes, and it breaks a few little rules that I discussed of having one parent scale, but we can kind of work it in. Let's look at the chord progression first, and we'll see how much motion is going on here. So I have C to E7, A7, D minor, A7, D minor, F major, F sharp diminished, C, A7, D7 to G7. And then back around the form. This one, I'll be honest, always kicked my butt on gigs. And there's certain recordings of this that the guitar players, I won't name any names because I'm fans of a lot of them, don't make the chord changes. And I was always listening to those records going, something's weird here. And then I heard some people make the changes. I'm like, oh, wow. All right, so there's a lot we can do on this. So we're kind of in the key of C in a real general sense. So I'm going to think about C major pentatonic. But since there's so many changes, as you can hear, we are technically changing keys. So what I think about, and what really saves my butt, is thinking the shapes of the chords. So I'm starting off on my C here, and I'll show you as I go through my solo what I'm thinking. C, right? And now my E7 comes next. And I thought, I took it really nice and simple on myself. So C major, E7, A7, the bar chords, right? Okay, now D minor, back to that A7, back to the D minor. And now here's where it's a little fun. Here's my F major triad. That is an F sharp diminished triad. It looks like D7. You just don't put the D in the bass. Then we have our C, and for the C chord, I'm just thinking, like if you could imagine a G chord, right? Then A7, D7 to G7. So if you work those out, just kind of like I did, in those just bar chords starting around the 5th fret, that area, it's exactly what I'm doing in a solo. So watch. Just a C major pentatonic lick that outlines the 1 chord, the C chord. Okay, so there is the first thing. Here's my E7 chord, or even my E triad. There is my G sharp. And that's a really strong note, and that's outside of that C major pentatonic scale. It is a chord tone, but it's the really strong note. That's the one you really want to nail. And actually so is the B. So I've got 2 notes that really outline that chord, because the E is in the pentatonic scale. So if I went, yeah, it's not very interesting, but if I go, great, right? So now I go to the A. Now I just kind of chose to go bluesy, but I'm thinking A, major triad, A7 chord, so A with a bend to the G, or G to the A bend. So right down that pentatonic scale to my C sharp. Then my next chord is a D, playing off of a D minor triad. So I have D, F, and A. I'm going to play my A by just bending from the G to the A. Playing a C on top, I'm thinking C major pentatonic. Right? But really kind of making sure I get that F in there. Now the F is the note that is not in the C major pentatonic. That's that really strong note we want to look for. Right? So it's the one that really defines that D minor chord. Just as when we're on the A7 chord, we go back and forth. So just C sharp to D covers the A, D minor. It's right in the chord, so if you look really small, you've got it nailed. Now, for the F chord, I just played an F triad. I just played this. There's my F chord, that voicing we kind of ran over. Then I'm going to this, which is the F sharp diminished. which kind of, like I said, looks like a D7 if you're not familiar with that chord. But we have that nice bass motion, right? That's what's really going on. That moving of the line up, and I just grab it. Right? Just play it right, play the chords. Then, so I played almost the same exact lick as I played before. I go from the C chord, right, to the A7 chord. Now we have a D7 chord. D triad. What note out of the A major pentatonic scale, C major pentatonic scale, that is the strong note here is the F sharp. It's a third of the chord. Like I said, right there. Now when I went to the G, I took a classic G move. That's a must-know blues lick. But I'm thinking, remember I said the G7 chord? Right there, the G major triad. 2 scale tones in between, nice little chromatic thing because it sounds cool. And why does that sound so good to end on? G major triad, G major triad. So I'm just outlining those chords right as I go through it. So once again, just think about C major pentatonic kind of works over the whole thing, kind of not really. I hear people go for that, and it just doesn't sound so good. So now, the only way to make it through this song, in my mind, because it changes keys all over the place, is to just target the chord tones and look at those strong notes that are different from your pentatonic scale. And really play those up, because those are the ones, like I said, are the strongest notes. The perfect example right off the top. Right? Those two are not in the pentatonic scale. So those are the ones I really think I want to grab. Okay, so take your time. Once again, see that progression right there. Or when I said here, C, E7. You can make it through the whole chord progression by just doing this. I'm not a really great jazz guitar player. Just never followed that. But I know I can make it through jazz tunes because I know where the notes are. I know what the shapes are. I know what the sounds are. And that's always a thing I can rely upon. Any kind of chord progression that comes my way, might have some difficulty with it, but I know eventually I can make it through because I know where the notes are and I can see where the triads are. So this is a great tune to start digging in on that. Let me take you through the solo.